afternoon, good evening, good morning. I'm Tom Sinclair, that VidBlaster guy, coming to you on July 24th, 2013 with another episode of our show. We're glad to have you here. We got folks in the chat room already. If you're watching us live, by all means, join us in chat. If you're watching us on YouTube, hey, that's great, but try a live show. That's a lot of fun, too. Today's a question and answer show, so if you've got some questions, or even if you've got some answers, get them queued up, pop them into chat, and we'll be dealing with them here in just a second. Let's see, where shall we start our show today? Let's start the show with some breaking news. It's not really breaking news, but VidBlaster has got a new beta out. It is version 3.14. It is the second what's called RC, or release candidate. The first one had a little teeny-weeny bug in it, and so now it's out for everybody to test and make sure that version 3.14 is bug-free so it can be an official release. And that way, if you're buying VidBlaster, you can then buy the version 3. I will make mention that version 3 is a little different than version 2. There are a couple things that are not in version 3 yet. And so if you're considering the jump from version 2 to version 3, carefully check the feature list. When version 3 goes live on VidBlaster, that they will change the product comparison chart on the vidblaster.com website, and so they'll update it with features that are available in the different editions. You've got the Home Edition, the Pro Edition, the Studio Edition, and the Broadcast Edition. And each one, as you go up the ladder, has got more features and more flexibility and more power. But there are a couple of things that are not yet finished, I think, in version 3, but they're going to go ahead and put it out because it's stable and it's got a lot of things that make it worthwhile getting. The recorder is not quite where I think it should be yet. It doesn't have as many options for file format saving in different file formats as the old recorder in version 2 did. Right now we can't save with a WMV file or an MOV file or an FLV file or an AVI file for that matter. I think it's just an MP2, MP4. I'm not even sure what the abbreviation on it. It uploads fine to YouTube, and it makes DVDs just fine too. But if you're counting on something that you can do some post editing on, you want to check and make sure that it'll work with your software. The other thing that's not yet in version 3, and I think is coming down the pike, is the player. Is the playlist for the player, where you can put a bunch of videos or music and have it play automatically one after the other. That probably won't come back in the player playlist format, but rather something like a play out module that will allow you to actually schedule and program how things get played. So that's a feature probably that a lot of folks will take some use of. So there's no playlist in version 3 yet, and you don't have the opportunity to select the file format that you want to save in for the recorder. So be aware of that if you're buying the product. I've had some folks that bought it and were disappointed that they didn't have those features available. Well, they actually bought version 2 and got an automatic upgrade to version 3, even though it hasn't been released yet, and they were checking out the betas because they wanted the benefit of the great reconfiguration that VidBlaster has done in terms of CPU usage. VidBlaster used to be such a CPU hog, and here we're doing 58% right now, streaming and recording, and have got 6 or 7 cameras going. So it's doing better and better and better. Really excited about it. Other news on the That VidBlaster Guy front is we won't have a show next week. I'll be on vacation, so I'll miss you guys. But I'll come back with vim and vigor for the following week and have a great show for you then. And let's see what else. If you've had problems with version 2 in the player, you've probably already heard that it was a Microsoft update problem. Microsoft shot an update out there, and the update is in the top right-hand corner of the screen. That is the update that caused all the problems. It wasn't just VidBlaster that was affected. A lot of Adobe software was affected also. I guess their video editing stuff maybe. And there was a lot on the Adobe forums about that. if you'd like a link to the Adobe forum and read more about it, just shoot me an email, and I would be happy to help you. Let's see. Let's get that out of the way there. And how in the world do I get that out of the way? That's interesting. I don't have anything without the VidBlaster guy logo on it. Well, let's turn that off for a second, and we'll work on that. So this particular update from Microsoft just came out last week, I think last Tuesday, and created all sorts of problems for folks on version 2 with the player only showing half a screen, so you only got that much video. And finally, somebody was able to isolate it to one particular update. And so if you go into to your control, let's see, how would you do that? You go into Windows Update and then select Installed Updates, and then you can go in and find this particular update and uninstall it so that you don't have to do a system restore. So that is the answer to that question. I'm not sure whether Microsoft is going to send out a fix on whatever this particular update was, whether they'll fix that or not. But beware for that one. If you've got any questions about it, though, just shoot me an email, tom@thatvidblasterguy.com, and give me just a second here. I was reconfiguring my streaming setup here before I went on the air, because I have basically extended VidBlaster to 3 modules, and as a result, let's see if we can do this. As a result, I've got several things that I didn't ever really get put back together, because, yeah, there we go. That's what I was searching for right there. And let's see if we can show you this one. This is what it looks like now. I've got VidBlaster across 3 modules, across 3 monitors, and I can literally drag it all the way out and have it take up the entire of 3 monitors. And from what I understand, I can do this not with 3 monitors, but with 4 monitors, with 6 monitors, with as many monitors as I want to. And I think that is just really super cool. And the way I do that, you can look on last week's show, the July 17th show. If you've got a AMD graphics card, it's something called Catalyst Control. If you've got an NVIDIA graphics card, I believe it's called Surround. And you can Google or check on YouTube. Too many words going through my mouth at one time. Check on YouTube for whichever those is, and you can see how to set it up. It's really pretty easy. It's easy with a caveat, and let me go into that caveat for just a second. My graphics card has 3 ports on the back of it. It has VGA, it has DVI, and then it has this new one that I thought was HDMI at first, but it's something called DisplayPort. So DisplayPort kind of looks like an HDMI port, but it's not. It's got a different little bend to it, but it has all sorts of potential from what I understand. The potential it gave me was just trouble. And so I bought an El Cheapo adapter, because I don't have a DisplayPort monitor. You know me, I'm too cheap for that. And so this is the adapter that I bought. It was DisplayPort on one side, and you see that kind of looks like HDMI, but it's different on different sides. Plus, it's got, I like this, it's got the ability to lock in, so you can lock it in, unlike HDMI, which just pops out. Then on the other side, it was DVI. Well, this was, I don't know, $8, something like that. And I thought, oh, this is great. You know, that'll convert so I can plug my DVI monitor into it, and I can have 3 monitors like this. Well, that didn't work. That didn't work at all, because I found out later it has to be something called an active adapter. Now, this one by Sapphire is called an, oops, let me see if I can get it all the way down to the capture, an active DisplayPort to single-link DVI adapter, and that's what I need. The key word was active. It had to be active in order to work. And so once I got the right, and this one is black, and it's about 6 or 8 inches long, and once I plugged that in, presto changeo, immediately I had 3 monitors of VidBlaster. Got the 24-inch monitor in the center, the 20s on either side, and it just makes for wonderful desktop space. I can have everything that I want to look at one time. Got VidBlaster, I've got the chat room, I've got Twitter, I've got my CPU monitor. What are we, 58%, 59%, something like that. I'm not running Flash Media Live Encoder separately today, and I did the same thing last week because I wanted to see what effect it would have. I'm using the streamer, and I think I'm picking up, 4 or 5% CPU economy by using the streamer. I don't have as much flexibility in the streamer as I do with using Flash Media Live Encoder separately, because there's so many adjustments that you can make and you can tweak inside FMLE when you're running it separately. But with VidBlaster sort of picks and chooses different options. Like you've got the VP6 and the H.264 options as your encoder, but in VidBlaster it basically bundles together the speed bit rate for your video and the bit rate for your audio, and you don't really get to choose those separately. You just sort of get to choose whatever you want. And of those presets, not all the presets that are available in Flash Media Live Encoder are available in VidBlaster. But having said all that, it seems to be working pretty well, and I think I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to encourage, at some point, get into the forum and encourage Mike maybe to expand the capabilities of the streamer so far as Flash Media Live Encoder. And, hat tip to Joe DeMax. I'm going to take a long look when I've got the time at FFmpeg, which is a command line encoding software, and see if something like that will help. What my goal would be is to be able to take one stream of audio and video and have it encoded, and then after it's encoded, have it sent to multiple CDNs. I think the way it would work right now, I've got the broadcast version of VidBlaster, and so I can use multiple streamers, but each one would be a separate instance of Flash Media Live Encoder for each stream. So I wouldn't have the economy there of just encoding it once and then sending it as many times as I need it. I would have to encode it once for each stream. And so there I would lose the economy. But I'll keep you up to date on that project. That's kind of a long-term project. And I'm looking forward to conquering that one and learning more about it and sharing it with you guys as I do. And if it doesn't work, I'll tell you that too. Sometimes it's almost as important to know what doesn't work, so you don't spend a lot of time going down that path if somebody else has already been down the path and it just wasn't successful. So that's the adventure of going to 3 monitors, which I really, really am enjoying, and can't wait to use it in a sporting environment where I can run VidBlaster. Let's see, let me go back to that for again. So I can do my switching here and do my instant replay here, and then have another monitor to drag VidBlaster out to if I need to, if I'm going to do other things. So now finally, we have the ability to make VidBlaster as big as we need it to be, or as small. We can take it right now, and I can drag it, and I can take all these modules that are covered up. I can make VidBlaster that small if I want to. That's pretty small, and all the other modules are still there and they're still active. I just can't see them, and so we'll bring that back out the way it was. There we go. All right, so that's the good stuff that's going on with the Extending Displays project. I would say that was a successful project, and if you have any questions about it, let's see, where is it? Shoot me an email. There's the email address, tom@thatvidblasterguy.com. Whoops, that's a little low. I'll try to get down in below it. If you're just, kind of discovering VidBlaster for the first time, a great place to go and get a wealth of information is the forum, forum.vidblaster.com. And there are probably, thousands of posts on the forum where it talks about VidBlaster all the way back from the bad old days of, VidBlaster .42, which I think was the very first version I ever tried. And you can kind of read the history as it goes and see the different experiments that people carry on and the different hardware that people experiment with, especially capture cards. Capture cards are always something that people are interested in. And for those of you that are curious, yes, I am using the V Prime 6-port capture card today for the show. This is my Logitech C920, but I've got the other set up just for some good studio shots. So we've got different shots around each one of those coming on the V Prime capture card, which I think it's amazingly priced at $416. Plus shipping. It's coming out of, it comes from China, but the distributor in the U.S. is in Beaverton, Oregon. So that's pretty cool, pretty good stuff too. And I'll put a link in the YouTube video and a link on the website if you're interested in more information about getting that from V Prime. Let's see. While I'm thinking about it, if you would like notices from me about upcoming shows or anything else pertaining to VidBlaster, like Microsoft updates that screw things up, there is a email sign-up link on the website, thatvidblasterguy.com. And if you'll go and shoot me your email, I will add you to the list. And I try not to abuse it. At the most you'll get is one email a week. Most of the time it's just an update on what the upcoming show is, or if there's something, particularly urgent, don't do this, I'll send that out. So you can sign up for that too. If you have purchased a license for VidBlaster and you're struggling, you're floundering for some reason, things just aren't working the way you expected, and you need somebody to talk to, you need some tech support, or you need somebody that can text you or email with you or somehow get it figured out, I'd be happy to help you with that. There is a support function in our store at thatvidblasterguy.com where you can purchase support by the hour or by the year, and so I would be happy to help you if that were the case. And if you're not sure if I can help, shoot me an email with the question, and we can talk about it. And if it works for you, then you can come back later and buy the support. That's okay too. And if you think this show's been helpful to you, there's also a donation button on the website, so we'd love to have your support there also. That kind of helps my capture card addiction. Anyway, the question that I want to pose to those of you that are here in the chat room. By the way, this is a question and answer show, so I'm not going to be asking all the questions. I'm hoping you guys will come up with some questions as well. But the question well, I didn't really get asked this question today quite like this, but this, I think, is what the question was. Somebody was calling me, and they were talking about what they wanted to do. They wanted to stream sports multi-camera. They had some clients that they were working with, so they knew they could spend some money on some equipment. They were looking at Blackmagic, they were looking at Wirecast, they were looking at vMix, they were looking at VidBlaster, they were looking at TriCaster, and it was this big, massive jumble of hardware, software, interfaces, capture cards, cameras, you name it. It was, how do you see the forest for the trees? How do you choose? How do you choose? When you've got a project like that you're working on, how do you choose what you want? I think the answer is both very complex and very simple. And I'll give you the simple answer first. The simple answer is you start with what's most important. What do you want to do? What do you want to do that you can't do now? And this can go not just for a sporting environment, this can go for a church, this can go for a talk show, this can go for a major event like a concert or a speech or a rally. What do you want to do that you're not able to do now? Do you want to do multi-camera? That's generally a hardware function. That is, you need a capture card or a switcher. Do you want to record? Well, that can be a hardware function, but it also can be a software function. Do you want to do graphics? Do you want to do PowerPoint presentations? Do you want to do picture-in-picture? Do you want to bring in a Skype caller and have somebody that's alongside you that you're talking to? Do you want to do, if you're in the sports world, do you want to do instant replay, slow motion instant replay? Those are the kinds of questions that you need to ask yourself, and then based on the answers to those questions and the priority of those answers, begin to look for the things that take, let's say you've got 5 main things that you really want to do. If you can find one product or a combination of compatible products that will take most of those 5, then that's probably where you start. A lot of times I'll get an email from somebody that has purchased a PC. They have a PC, and now they want to know what kind of capture card to go with and how will it do with VidBlaster. And I'll get the email, I've purchased this PC, it's an i3, and I just want to say stop right there, You're not going to be able to do, at least with VidBlaster. Maybe you will with some other software, I don't know, I'm not an expert in those. But with VidBlaster, you're not going to be happy with an i3, probably not going to be happy with an i5 for very long. Not if you want to do, today's show is 864 by 480 at 30 frames a second. That takes a good amount of processing power to pull that off. And if you want to go faster than that, you want to go bigger than that to high definition, you're definitely not going to pull that off with an i3 or an i5. An i7 is going to be the bottom minimum. So do your research. I appreciate the call that I got today because this was somebody who was actually coming from a Mac world and they had no PC equipment at all. I said, oh, why don't you download VidBlaster trial and take a look at it? Oh, well, all I have is Macs. Well, I forgot to mention about Boot Camp or an emulator where he could take a look at it, but maybe he's watching and can have a go at that. But it is important to try as much as you can before you start spending the big money, because what you may be planning may not work. For example, I had somebody call me the other day and they had this great big Dell that they loved. It was fast and had a lot of hard drives, and they had Blackmagic Intensity cards and they couldn't get them to work, and I don't think they will. I think there's a problem with Dells that just is not compatible with Blackmagic products. And so they had done their theory work, but they hadn't really done the application work on it. So do your homework, and if I can help with your homework, I don't want to cheat and put your name on the paper and turn it into the teacher, but I am happy to share my experience and say, yeah, that works. I know that works because I've done it 100 times, or I've done that 5 times and I never was able to get it work. Maybe you can do it, but I can't. So that's my little kind of segment on how to choose. Start with the most important things first. What's most important to you? Go out and find the things that do what's most important to you first. And try not to make any major purchases until you've kind of done your homework. So let's see. Let's check in the chat room, see if we've got some questions here. And I've got a question from John. He says, how about one of the AMD higher-end chips and version 3's ability to use multi-cores? And what I think he's talking about is an AMD CPU that might be, what was when they're called the Bulldozer, and some others that are multi-core, and VidBlaster 3's ability to use multi-core. That's a good question. I don't know by practical experience whether that will be beneficial or not. I have compared, it's probably been a year or more ago, compared the latest, greatest AMD chip with the latest, greatest Intel chip, and there was no comparison. Intel blew AMD away. AMD, the chip was struggling, and the Intel chip was not. So I would say if you haven't already purchased hardware and you have a choice between an AMD processor and an Intel processor, I would go with the Intel for sure, the i7 for sure. I say that because I know that works. I know that works. I'm confident in it. The PCs that I build for my customers start at the very least with either, well, it used to be a 2600K and then a 3770K, and now it's a 4770K overclockable i7 processor. So you've got a little bit of ability to get that bad boy going a little faster and a little stronger if you need to. Not like having a 6-core processor. But that's a great question. But I'm just not an AMD guy. I'm probably not fair on that regard. Let's see. Question. Do any of my customers use AMD for CPU? No. Not that I know of. I'm sure there probably are some, but that's a way that I've ever advised somebody have. And I hear there are a couple of folks here in the chat room that say that they've got AMDs and they're just fine. Got a question from the jacket that says, have you or your customers tried Teradek products for live streaming in the field? I have not, but I know there are a number of VidBlaster users that have. If you'll go to the VidBlaster forum, forum.vidblaster.com, and do a search on Teradek, you'll find a lot of background on folks that have used the Teradek very successfully. You got to remember, I'm the cheapskate guy. I'm the eBay shopper. You know, where was I the other day? I was I was looking in the clearance department in Walmart to see if I could find an active adapter for the DisplayPort to DVI. Not that I really expected to find it there, but I thought, well, maybe somebody at Walmart doesn't know what it is, and they're going to put it on sale for $4, and I can get one. It wasn't there. I didn't get it. But no, I'm not a Teradek guy. Not a Teradek guy. Let's see. My buddy John is asking, is there any way to zoom within VidBlaster? Not in a zoom. But in terms of, is there a way to show two shots that are different? Yeah, we can do that. Let's see if we can set it up here real quick. We'll add an effect module. And I'm going to do a picture-in-picture. And we'll do fixed aspect ratio. Effect 6. And I'll switch over to that one so you can see I've got the ability to have a shot that's a little zoomed in, zoomed out as the case may be. So this may be my main shot. And then I'm going to this shot. I'm not sure if that's what you're talking about, John, but I've kind of used that in the past. I did it with a virtual set where I had a full virtual set with two people in the virtual set, desks in front of them, and then the second shot was just the person on this side. The third shot was just the person on that side. So it wasn't a zooming in that sense, but it was a transition between what appeared to be two camera shots, but was really just the same camera shot. And Martin is saying in the chat room that you can use part of a camera input by cropping, which I guess is just sort of the opposite of what I was doing with the PIP. I was making it smaller. Martin is talking about making it bigger, but it is not dynamic. Let's see. So let's see what other questions we might have here from you guys, because I probably missed a few. Did I say what video card I'm using? I did not. And I don't remember. God, that's terrible. I think it is a Sapphire class HD 5770. AMD 5770. Yeah. As to what exact model it is, I'm not sure, but it's all three monitors going great. I think the card was cheap. It was like $69. I was kind of amazed. It really was good. And there's a question in the chat room about somebody in the UK having a baby boy. I don't think we're going to get to that one. And okay, doesn't look like I've missed any other questions back there. Let's scroll on back to the beginning. And nope, don't see any other questions at this point. Coming up in 2 shows, not next week, but the week after, I will be reviewing the V Prime capture card. That is, again, it's a 6-port capture card, 4 ports of standard definition, 2 ports of high definition. I had reviewed that one a while back, but that's the time when my motherboard decided to die, and as a result, I don't think I gave it a fair test. So we will test that one and let you know. Another question in the chat room, and a couple questions, and I'll take them in order. Jacket is asking, does VidBlaster utilize GPU acceleration? And the answer to that question is, to the best of my knowledge, no. VidBlaster does not use the GPU to do any graphics processing. It just simply allows it to display the graphics on the monitors. It does all the processing on the CPU, which I understand is some other software does use the GPU, and of course requires a higher end graphics card as a result, but also can give you a little better performance. And that's something that, if that's important to you, that you definitely want to look at. Bob is asking, do you run VidBlaster without any antivirus? To start VidBlaster, I need to disable Kaspersky. Is it Kaspersky? Then when running, I can re-enable, and I found in testing sometimes that process, the virus detection takes 30% of the CPU, and that's on an AMD Quad HP system. And that is a great question, Bob. I really appreciate that question, because I had somebody that I've been corresponding with by email trying to help them get started with the trial version. And they were having trouble installing VidBlaster on their PC, and it turned out it was their antivirus software that thought VidBlaster was a virus and wouldn't allow them to install it. I view my PC like it was a exotic sports car, a racing car of some kind. So as a result, it does not have a trailer hitch. I do not expect it to carry anything else other. I mean, if it were a sports car, it's carrying me. That's it. If it's a PC that I'm running VidBlaster on, then it's only going to run VidBlaster. I don't have any, or don't have much other software on my PC. No virus protection at all. No Windows Defender is disabled. Periodically, I'll run a virus scanner through just to make sure I haven't picked up something by accident. I haven't detected one ever. But again, this PC is used primarily for streaming, if not for streaming this show, for doing the remote sporting events that I do. So I really do have it stripped down to just the most important aspects of what a PC does. I think I've got some basic word processing software on here, so I can do a quick document. I've got Flash Media Live Encoder on here. There probably are some other ancillary pieces of software on here, but for the most part, it's just VidBlaster, because that's just what I use. I mean, obviously I've got Windows Explorer and Chrome, because you need to have some access to the internet. But I try to treat it like it was a single function, single use computer. Now, that's not always possible. Excuse me, I understand. And so I would recommend that when somebody goes through the process or is in the, let me rephrase that. When somebody is using the family PC or work PC or a multifunction PC as a streaming PC, then do what you can to disable those kinds of things that, number one, might prevent things from working properly, and as Bob says, number two, will eat up a bunch of your CPU cycles. Because you know, I covet those CPU cycles. I don't until I get an Intel i7 Extreme processor or whatever the next bad boy is that Intel's got coming down the pike. I want to be economical about how I divvy out my CPU cycles. So as a result, I'm constantly checking msconfig to see what other software is loading up on startup. I'm checking the start folder to make sure there's not something that slipped in that way. I'm going into Task Manager to see what processes might be running in the background that are unnecessary, because something, you know, every piece of software has always got a little something that it wants to have there just in case you need it. And I don't want it stealing RAM, I don't want it stealing CPU cycles. And virus protection software is notorious for doing that kind of thing. One other thing to mention while we're sort of talking about ways to optimize your PC, the folks that have Windows Update set to download and install updates automatically were the people that had trouble with the bad Microsoft Windows Update for the most part. I have got my setting that says, ask me if you want to download it and install it, and I'll tell you yes or no. What I've heard happen, and it's happened to me, but not recently because I got smarter and learned, but I remember going out into the field for a remote broadcast, probably a soccer tournament, something like that, having not used my broadcast PC in maybe a week or more, and plugging it in, and then all of a sudden my CPU usage is way up, my my ability to get on the internet is down, because all of a sudden I'm downloading all of these Windows updates, and it took me the longest time to discover what the problem was. The same thing can happen with Dropbox. If you use Dropbox and you have, you know, a work PC and a play PC and a broadcast PC, or if you're hooked up with other people that share the same Dropbox, if you haven't used Dropbox in a while, or if a buddy has put a giant video file in Dropbox, all of a sudden it can eat CPU cycles and slow down your internet. So you want to be careful about Dropbox. Actually, Dropbox is one of the things that I do have active on this PC, but it's only with me. It's only this PC and 3 other PCs that I use from time to time. And so I might make a graphic at a different PC, put it in my Dropbox, knowing that the next time I boot this PC, I'll have that graphic available for me in the Dropbox. And I leave a lot of the show materials in my Dropbox so that I can modify them somewhere else, and they'll be here waiting for me when I get back. I like the whole Dropbox concept. Dropbox is a good one. Let's see, where were we going with that? Virus protection, yeah. I'm not a virus protection guy. There's also a process, and I think I did a video on that back last year. I'll have to go back and see which one it is. Every time you set up a new PC, there's probably a checklist of things that you want to do in terms of stripping it down, making it ready for action. You know, taking off the trailer hitch, you know, taking off the hubcaps, getting the car ready to race. And I believe I called it optimizing your PC. I'll put a link to it in the show notes for that. Optimize PC link. So if you're interested to see what I think your PC ought to look like, and not that I'm any great guru on this, but basically these are just little tips and tricks I picked up probably from most of you over the years, of ways to make your PC a little bit more attuned to the single function of of broadcasting, of streaming, of recording, of doing instant replay or chroma key or whatever you're asking the PC to do with the VidBlaster software. Kind of let it focus in on that. Next question is from JP. Thank you, JP. Do you think VidBlaster will ever support PSD? That's the Photoshop files instead of PNGs for overlays. That's a really good question, I think, JP. The answer right off the cuff is probably not. But having said that, a lot of features in VidBlaster have come from VidBlaster users suggesting the feature in the VidBlaster forum, and momentum building among other users. And I'll put the link to the forum back up again. Momentum building with other users who say, oh yeah, I think that would be a great idea. And then somebody else said, yeah, and if you could tweak it just a little bit like this, and then somebody else says, yeah, I like that, I'll give it a +1. And before you know it, you've got 20 or 30 people that say this is a must-have feature. And as you all know, if you've ever written to your congressman, if you live in the U.S., that basically is one of our elected politicians, they have a formula where if they get a letter from you, a written letter from you, not an email or something like that, they assume that there's 1,000 or 1,500 people out there that feel the exact same way. So if they get 50 letters like that, they think, oh, well, there's 50 or 75,000 people that think this way. And I think the VidBlaster forum kind of works the same way, is that if one person suggests it and 5 people say, yeah, I think that's a good idea, that represents more than just 6 users across the whole world. And that, the more folks that chime in and say, yeah, I think that's a great feature, the more likely is a feature like that's going to get put into VidBlaster. And if you look at I think some of the better features in VidBlaster, they have come from user suggestions. Now, I suspect the developer of VidBlaster, Mike Versteeg, has probably come up with tons of ideas and has them on a private notepad off to the side, and he's just waiting to see if other folks will spring up and mention that need. And when they do, he probably says to himself, okay, I've been thinking about how I might do this. Let's see how many folks are interested in it, and if I kind of get a critical mass, I'll have a go for it. At least twice in my association with VidBlaster. I'm a VidBlaster reseller. I'm an MVP on the forum, and a mod on the forum. So I'm pretty much a VidBlaster guy, hence the show name. But there have been twice in my history with VidBlaster where the developer has actually put out on the forum a question to the VidBlaster community: what do you want me to do next? What feature would you really like to see in VidBlaster? And I think that's just outstanding, to have the developer saying to the community, what do you want? What do you want to do that you can't do? What would make VidBlaster more valuable to you? Because he knows if he makes it more valuable to you, you're going to like it, you're going to tell other people about it, but also that there are going to be other people out there that'll see value in it too. And that's one of the things I like about VidBlaster the best, is that the developer is responsive to the users. Now, that's not to say that every whim of every user is complied with, because I'm sure that's not true. But I do find him to be willing to consider some well-thought-out suggestions. Bird brain ideas, yeah, those deserve to be tossed aside without a whole lot of mention. But well-thought-out suggestions, I think, are very seriously considered. So, JP, having said all that, the answer to your question is, I don't see support of PSD in the near future. But if you and other VidBlaster users were to get into the forum and say, we really think this is important, and here's why, I wouldn't be surprised to see it as a feature. I remember the whole idea of PowerPoint came that same way. If somebody said, I've got a PPT file, isn't that what it is, PPT? Anyway, I'm not a PowerPoint user, so I'm just working off of memory. But where they said, we'd like to be able to display our PowerPoints through VidBlaster directly, as opposed to doing a screen capture or putting a camera on a video screen and importing it as a camera or something like that. And so, that worked. I mean, you have to own PowerPoint, and it has to be on the broadcasting PC in order for that to work. But there are a lot of ways to do that. Let's see, other questions. That was a great question. JP, thank you for that. And there's some discussion in the chat room about VidBlaster and virus protection. Yeah, a couple of folks had to get VidBlaster whitelisted. Okay. Let me scroll down in chat because I'm sure I'm not keeping up with the less. Jim Moline's got a great question. I like that. Do you know of anyone who has a simplified wiring diagram for using multiple Skype inputs in a live show? Multiple Skype inputs in a live show. Jim, you may have to help me a little bit more with that question, but it sounds like that question would violate the VidBlaster guy mantra, which is one man, one PC, one awesome broadcast. The way that I used to do a soccer talk show several years ago, it was a lot of fun, and it was where I sort of cut my teeth on doing Skype and VidBlaster and a talk show. And I used the multiple Skype, whatever the paid service is, where you can talk to 4 other people at the same time. And so I would have that set up on one monitor, and then do a series of screen captures to capture the video from those guys, and of course pick up the audio on a separate channel so that I could control the audio. And that worked really well. I mean, there was a monthly cost. I think it was $9 back then. It probably is not a lot more than that now. And that allowed me to kind of be the central control and then have those 4 guys join me on a regular basis. I know Amnon Nissan with Nissan Communications does the same thing, especially for his very popular Computers 2K Now show on Sunday mornings at 9 a.m. Eastern. That's computers2know.com. And he's got himself and 3 others as the participants in the show, and that's through the Skype multi-call. I've played with other options besides Skype, but haven't found any that I would recommend to do the same thing. Skype seems to be the most consistent, and it has really good audio quality, and audio really is important. So if I were to do multiple instances of Skype, and I understand with some of the older versions of Skype you can do that, and have 2 or 3 instances of Skype running on the same PC doing screen captures, I suspect you could do that. My concern there would be, how it would affect your CPU and how it would affect your bandwidth, because now you don't have really one Skype connection over the internet. You've got 2 or 3 Skype connections over the internet, plus your streaming connection if you're actively streaming. So that would be the concern there. Now, if you're going to a multi-PC environment, of which I have no practical experience, because everything here is done one man, one PC, one awesome broadcast. You're bringing in simply essentially a camera capture, a capture card, and bringing in audio. The audio is probably coming into your mixer, so you're not worried so much about bringing the audio into your PC, because you're going to mix it in the mixer and then bring it into the PC. But then, any inexpensive PC can operate as a Skype PC. And then really your limitation, again, is bandwidth. What is the bandwidth limitation that you might have? If you've got an uplink cap of a meg, my guess is you're probably going to not be able to bring in multiple Skype callers and send return video back to them. If you're not sending return video back to them, then it's not a big deal. It can be audio. I mean, it can just be a one-way call on that sense. or send back to them a degraded version or a black screen or something like that, because I think you can choose different outputs. Here's a question. VB Guy, are you using an IFB device for audio monitoring? Well, that's a good question, because I haven't a clue what an IFB device is. I'm using a CPH, a cheap pair of headset buds. I guess that would be a CPB, a cheap set of buds that are connected to my mixer. And that's how I monitor the audio. But again, for me today, this is a simple show. It's, one mic. I'm bringing in the audio from VidBlaster. And so I've got that set on a different channel, and then all of that's being mixed out, and I'm just plugged into the headphone jack on the mixer. So actually, I'm not monitoring the broadcast at all. I'm actually monitoring just what the computer would hear from the mixer. And let's see, if you will tell me what an IFB, I mean, I can assure you I'm not using an IFB, because if I was, oh, I see, here we go. IFB is interrupted feedback. And that would be to avoid the ducking, where one person talks over another person, but the other person can't hear him. Mike Phillips did a nice piece on the IAIB website about how to set up your PC to avoid Skype ducking. Let's see. I can go back and see what other questions I might have missed here. John has got a question regarding the forum. How does a registered and licensed user make comments or ask questions? Ah, very good. In the forum, there is, what section of the forum is it? I guess it's let me go to the forum real quick, and I can answer that question really well. It's in the support section of the forum, and it's the first sticky that said, licensed VidBlaster users get access to all boards. And basically, you just post a note there to Mike and say, hey, I'm a licensed user. Make me a licensed user on the forum so that I can post to everything besides just the support section of the forum. The support section anybody can post to, and the license section only the licensed users can post to. And so sometimes folks get a little confused on that, but that's how you do it. Just send him a link, send him a note saying, here's the name. I registered my VidBlaster under the name of Bob Smith, and I want to be recognized as a user. And as long as your name on VidBlaster is Bob Smith, and he's got a license for Bob Smith, he'll probably let you in. But it is, there is a gatekeeping function there to kind of keep just licensed users in that big section of the forum. Let's see. Remote desktop input, please. That is what I want. Alan, you got to give me more on that. Then there's this discussion. Hang on with me, folks, trying to catch up to the chat here. It got way ahead of me. Yeah, somebody suggesting Uvu as a way to do, multiple callers in a Skype. And somebody suggesting Google Hangout. And Jim says the question on Skype was basically how to configure your audio, mix, minus, etc., like Stephen Haywood did with me and Richard on the Broadcast Now show. The audio that I use when I have a Skype guest, it's and I think I've done a show on that. If not, I'd be happy to do a little tutorial on it. It's not It's not simple, but it's not undoable. I mean, there's several steps, and they're a little complicated. And if you are, and Jim, I'm not talking just to you, but just to folks in general, if you kind of struggle to understand audio devices in Windows, then it will be difficult. But if you understand how audio devices work, it should be really simple. The idea is that you set up your mixer so that all of the audio in the mixer, except for the Skype caller's audio, gets sent back to the Skype caller. And they do that by using an auxiliary bus. And so on my mixer, I've got the AUX1 bus, AUX1 bus. And so I'll turn up the volumes on all of the channels that are active, except for the Skype channel, which we'll talk about that one in just a second. And then there's a control to control the volume of all the AUXes together on AUX1, and then a plug called AUX1 send. And so I plug in AUX1 send, and then in this case I plug it into a separate sound card that I have attached, a USB sound card. And then in Skype, I tell Skype to use that USB sound card audio device as the microphone. So all of the audio from me and anybody else that might be involved in the studio, all of that is fed together into the aux bus, goes to the separate sound card, goes from the separate sound card into the PC, and then I tell Skype to take that as my microphone, as my input. And then from the Skype side, my mixer has a connection on one of the input channels that goes to the speaker port on the back of the PC. And so it's the output from the PC speaker port to the mixer is what I select in Skype for the speaker. So I've kind of done a workaround there, and what's called a mix minus. I've taken the mix of all the audio signals on my mixer minus the Skype caller's own audio themselves, and so when I send them back audio, it doesn't include their own, and that works pretty well. If you have trouble following that, shoot me an email. I would be happy to direct you to either a video that I've done on that in the past, or I'll put together a new one in case something might have changed. But that's the whole idea of a mix minus with Skype calling, and the same thing would be true whether you had one Skype instance going on, or whether you had a room full of computers with a room full of Skype instances going on. You would just have a room full of inputs into your mixer, and you'd have to have a ton of auxiliary, whatever you would call those. You'd have AUX1 through AUX16. All right, let's see. I'll catch up with the questions here because I'm way behind on the list. And Ovina says in the forum that ideally the aux buses are switchable to post-fader. Some people like to do pre-fader only. I like pre-fader because pre-fader means that the aux gets exactly what I want it to get, regardless of what I determine. But if, for example, I want a situation where I don't want my Skype caller to hear something, I'm going to say something bad about them, I want it post-fader. I want it post-fader or pre-fader? Yeah, I want it post-fader so that I can control what they get with the slides on the mixer. Did I get that right? Anyway, I think you understand. Here's a great question from Martin. Someone asked me how other people monitor the streaming process to make sure their stream is actually being received by the viewers. by running a browser on the same PC, or by viewing it on a different PC but at the same location, or some other way, or not at all? That is an outstanding question. I suspect that Martin has bumped into that a time or two. There are lots of ways to do that. My favorite way is to phone a friend and say to my friend, hey, will you take a second and fire up your PC and look on there and just give me an audio check and a video check and make sure I look and sound as good as I think I do. If you have a chat room, that's nice. And if you've got folks that are hanging around a little bit before the show, a lot of times folks like that love to be able to say, oh, your audio's a little hot, your video's a little fuzzy, but you can get some great feedback there. And sometimes there'll be folks that say, what do you mean? I don't hear or see anything. And that might indicate that there's a problem in the CDN somewhere. Sometimes I will start playing theme music here in my studio and then run across the house to my laptop set on the other side of the house and make sure I can hear my theme music. And that's especially if it's way, way, way before pre-show. And I just want to do that audio check and make sure that things go in, especially if I've had problems with something and I'm testing it. That's the way I'll do it. But I think the chat room is really the bomb. That's the way to do it. Let's see. Somebody else says they're using their mobile phone. That's good. And somebody else says just ask somebody in the chat. Yeah, there you go. Very good. And then other people have joined in and said, good question, good question. Indeed, that was a very good question. Well, I'm looking at the time here, and time has just flown by. You guys asked some really great questions today, and I gave it my best shot on them. Some of them I think I'm a little fuzzy on. The pre-fader, post-fader thing kind of threw me a second because I have to think that one through. It's kind of like a logic question. But if you've got other questions that you think that I can help you with, shoot me an email, tom@thatvidblasterguy.com. If you've got a support question and you say, I don't know if I want to buy the support, shoot me an email. If it's an easy thing, we can answer it by a return email or two. I'm happy to do that. Won't be a charge. But if we have to get deeper into that, then I'd ask you to buy a one-shot deal support package, or there's some folks that like for $100 you can get support for the full year. Now, if you're a VidBlaster user and you purchased your VidBlaster license from me, then you get unlimited tech support forever, or at least as long as I live, and I'm in pretty good health. So that's a benefit definitely for getting your VidBlaster license from that VidBlaster guy. Is you even get my cell phone number. Now, for those of you that are overseas, a cell phone number may not make a much difference, but hey, I'll still take your call. If you'll make the call, I'll take the call. That's easy. And a reminder that next week we will not have a show. I'll be on vacation. Thank you for the good vacation wishes. We're going to St. George Island, which is an island off the coast of North Florida in the Gulf of Mexico. Looking forward to having family together and some good fishing. That's going to be a bunch of fun. If you've got an idea for the show, if you'd like to see me do a demo on something that I know something about or something that I know nothing about, if you'd like to engage with me in a partnership demo, that would be a lot of fun. Always like to take on a project like that. Would be great to work with you, and it's been fun to work with some of the folks in the past. Also want to remind you, and let me take this graphic off for just a second, that this is the Microsoft update that caused all the problems. So if you're still suffering from problems with version 2 Player, only displaying half the video, go to Windows Update and go through the machinations of finding this particular update and uninstalling it, and that should fix it A-OK, no problems. And let's see what else. I think that's it. So I think we're done with the show. Thanks for tuning in. If you're tuning in live, hang around for a second. We're gonna do some decompressing in post-show, in the after show, the afterglow show. But if you're watching on YouTube, we'd love to have you live. We're live every Wednesday at 3 o'clock Eastern, 8 o'clock UK, and I think it's 5 a.m. Thursday in parts of Australia. And I appreciate our Australian friends that get up early on the next day to tune in and watch. I think some of them watch us while they're having breakfast or on the way to work. It's a lot of fun. And golly, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate that. Have a great day and a great evening and a great morning. And think of some cool ways to use VidBlaster. Oh, and if you have an idea for a VidBlaster contest, shoot me a line, Tom at thatvidblasterguy.com. I want to do another contest this fall. Yellow Jacket was one of our winners, the one we did back in, was it February or March? Anyway, need some cool ideas for that. So, I'm going to send you out with a little bit of VidBlaster theme music, but really great to have you, really great to see you. Thanks for tuning in to That VidBlaster Guy today.